Wednesday, 10:12 a.m., inside Providence Municipal Court, a man stands alone at the defendant's table, his hands gripping its edge as if holding himself steady against an invisible weight. His voice trembles slightly as he speaks. "Your Honor, don't you remember me?" Judge Frank Caprio pauses, glancing up from the docket, his pen frozen midair. His eyes narrow in quiet concentration, scanning the man's face, searching for a memory that refuses to surface. The courtroom clerk, Ms. Bell, notices the sudden stillness as the clock reads 10 to 12 to 18 a.m. Caprio sets his pen down slowly, his tone softening with apology. "I'm sorry," he says uncertainly. The man exhales, breath caught between heartbreak and hope. "I thought maybe you would." Because sometimes memory isn't just history. It's evidence. One face, one moment, one story left unfinished. Tell us where you're watching from and subscribe to Caprio, the Chief Judge, where every case proves that justice never forgets. The docket echoes, 2025 TR 5541, City of Providence vs. Raiken Boya. Charges, failure to maintain insurance, failure to appear. Fine, $320. Assistant City Solicitor Carla Nguyen remains seated, speaking calmly. "Your Honor, this is a standard traffic matter. Mr. Boya missed his original hearing in August. The city requests payment of the fine and court costs." Caprio nods slightly, eyes flicking to the docket sheet. "Mr. Boya, you're here without counsel?" "Yes, Your Honor." "You understand the charges?" "I do." "Then why did you ask if I remember you?" Boya shifts his stance, his voice firm yet emotional. "Because I'm not just here for the ticket." Caprio's brows rise. "Then what are you here for?" "To say thank you." The courtroom stills. Officer Romano, the bailiff, straightens instinctively. Caprio leans forward. "Mr. Boya, I appreciate gratitude, but this is a courtroom. If what you have to say is relevant to this case, proceed. Otherwise, we'll move on." Boya meets his gaze. "It's relevant, Your Honor. That's why I didn't pay the fine. Why I let the FDA stand. I needed to be in front of you." Caprio's expression remains calm. "That's not how the system works." "I know," Boya says softly, "but it was the only way I could think of." Timestamp, 10 hours 12 minutes and 41 seconds. Clerk note entered. Case file, 2025 TR 5541. Caprio studies the file again, eyes tracing the name Raiken Boya. "How old are you?" 42, "and you say I should remember you?" "You sent me away in 1989, Your Honor." "I was 15. You said, I believe you can change." "I did, but I never got to thank you." The courtroom falls utterly silent. Caprio lowers the file. 1989, "Yes, sir." "Miss Bell, can we pull up juvenile records from 1989? Last name Boya, first name Raiken." Bell turns to her terminal, fingers flying over the keys. 31 seconds pass before she speaks. "Found it, Your Honor. Case 1, 1989, JV 112. Soft music fades in as Caprio reads aloud from the old record, his own handwriting. A defendant Raiken Boya, age 15. Charge, assault, 3rd degree. Disposition hearing, July 14, 1989. Defendant acted in defense of sibling under provocation. Credible remorse. Detention is not damnation. Recommend residential rehabilitation with continued education track. 6-month review upon completion. His signature rests at the bottom. Loops younger, firmer, carrying the weight of time. The judge looks up quietly. Words, after all, can outlive the voice that once spoke them. "Boya, I don't remember your face," Caprio says softly, "but I remember writing this." Boya's eyes glisten. "You wrote more than that, Your Honor. You said something to me before I left the courtroom." Caprio leans forward. "What did I say?" "You said, you're better than your worst day. Don't let anyone tell you differently." Caprio slowly closes the file, voice low. "Did it help?" Boya nods. "It saved my life." The courtroom falls silent until Assistant Solicitor Nguyen shifts in her seat. "Your Honor, I don't mean to interrupt, but is this relevant to today's traffic matter?" Caprio raises a calm hand. "Miss Nguyen, give me a moment." Turning back to Boya, he asks, "Tell me briefly what happened after 1989. Boya inhales deeply. "I went to the program at St. Anani's in Warwick. 6 months became 8 because I wanted to finish my junior year there. I graduated high school in 1992. No arrests, no charges after that." Caprio nods. "What did you do after high school?" "Community college?" Boya continues. "Then I got a job with the City Parks Department. Been there 21 years. Married, 2 kids. My son's 16 now." Caprio makes a small note, eyes narrowing thoughtfully. "Why come back now?" Boya's voice trembles. My son just entered the same program you sent me to. Different building, same model. When I went to his intake meeting, they said it was inspired by a judicial recommendation from the late 80s. I asked who it was. They looked it up, and it was you. Mercy entered as a footnote, but it became a lifeline. Caprio leans back slowly. Mr. Boya, I'm glad the program helped you, but you're still here for failure to maintain insurance. We need to resolve that. I understand, Your Honor, Boya says quietly. I'll pay the fine. I just needed you to know. Know what? Caprio asks, that you didn't just change my life. You built something that's still changing lives, including my son's. Nguyen stands, papers in hand. Your Honor, may I request a brief recess to consult my notes? Denied, Caprio says firmly. Well, proceed. He turns to the clerk. Miss Bell, do we have contact information for the social worker on Boya's 1989 case? Bell scrolls through records. Linda Perez, retired. Phone number on file. Call her, Caprio instructs. Put it on speaker. Bell dials. The phone rings twice. Hello, Miss Perez? This is Miss Bell, clerk for Judge Frank Caprio at Providence Municipal Court. The judge would like to speak with you about a 1989 juvenile case. Yes. What case? Caprio leans forward. Miss Perez, this is Judge Caprio. Do you remember Riken Boya? 1989 juvenile assault case, number JV 112. A pause, then the sound of papers rustling. I remember the name. Give me a second. Yes, I have it here. Riken Boya, age 15 at intake. Residential program, 6 months. Completed successfully. Returned to public school. Graduated on time. Caprio nods as she continues. He intervened in a domestic situation involving his younger sister. Used force to stop an adult male who was harming her. I won't go into detail, but the prosecutor agreed it was a technical charge. You recommended rehabilitation instead of detention. Outcome, graduated high school in '92. No further juvenile contact. I even wrote a closing summary recommending the case be sealed. It's in the file. Caprio smiles faintly. Thank you, Miss Perez. May I ask why you're calling after 36 years? He's standing in my courtroom, Judge Caprio says quietly, almost to himself. He came back. A brief silence follows on the line before Miss Perez's soft voice returns. Then tell him I'm proud of him. I will, Caprio replies gently, and the call ends. He glances at the notes. Outcome, graduated '92. No further juvenile contact. To Boya, Caprio said, Miss Perez says she's proud of you. Boya nodded once, unable to speak. Her assistant solicitor Nguyen rose from her seat. Your Honor, given Mr. Boya's record in these extraordinary circumstances, the city is willing to reduce the fine to $160 if he can pay today. Caprio raised a single finger. Miss Nguyen, I haven't asked for your recommendation yet. My apologies, Your Honor, she said quickly. Caprio looked back at Boya. You mentioned your son's in the program now. What's his situation? Boya sighed. He made a mistake like I did, tried to protect someone and got caught up in trouble. The court gave him 2 options, the program or juvenile detention. I told him to take the program. And did he? Caprio asked. He did, Boya said. He's 3 months in and doing well. You visit him every week? Every single week. What do you tell him? Boya's voice steadied with emotion. I tell him what a judge once told me, that he's better than his worst day. Caprio paused, pen resting in hand. The weight of decades collapsing into a single moment. Generations loop when records do not lie. He finally spoke. Mr. Boya, I'm going to ask you something. Answer honestly. Why didn't you just write me a letter? Boya looked down, exhaling slowly. I tried 15 times over the years, but I never sent any of them. Why not? Because I didn't think you'd remember. And if you didn't, the letter wouldn't mean anything. Caprio's eyes softened. It would have meant something, maybe. But I understand you needed to say it face to face. He nodded slowly, then turned. Miss Nguyen, what's the city's official position on this case? Nguyen stood again, more composed. Your Honor, Mr. Boya has a clean record aside from this minor traffic matter. He's employed, stable, and clearly dedicated to his family and community. If the court finds restitution appropriate, the city defers to your judgment. Thank you, Caprio said quietly. He looked at Boya again. Mr. Boya, do you have anyone who can speak on your behalf regarding your character? My supervisor at the Parks Department, and maybe my old probation officer if he's still around. Name's Robert Hughes. Bell began typing Robert Hughes, retired 2018. Phone number on file. Call him, Caprio ordered. Bell dialed. The phone rang 4 times before a voice answered. Hello, Mr. Hughes? Yes. This is Judge Frank Caprio calling from Providence Municipal Court. Do you have a moment? Judge Caprio, I know the name, Hughes replied warmly. What can I do for you? Do you remember Riken Boya? You supervised him after his 1989 juvenile residential program. A pause, then a slow, thoughtful answer. Boya, yeah, I remember. Good kid. Rough start, tough situation, but he came out strong. Stayed clean. I think he got a city job later. Caprio nodded. He did. 21 years with the Parks Department. That doesn't surprise me, Hughes said. He was a worker. Always showed up, never made excuses. What's this about? Caprio smiled faintly. He's in my courtroom on a traffic matter. Hughes chuckled softly. Traffic? That's all? Then I'd say you did something right, Judge. That's all. Then I'll tell you what I told his probation board back in 1990, Caprio said. Riken Boya is one of those rare success stories. Whatever you decide today, make sure you factor that in. Caprio nodded. I will. Thank you, Mr. Hughes. Tell him I said hello. I will. The call ended. The courtroom settled into silence as the words rehabilitation has no statute of limitations seemed to echo. Caprio turned toward Boya. Mr. Hughes says hello. Thank you, Your Honor, Boya replied softly. Caprio studied him for a moment. Mr. Boya, you mentioned earlier that you wrote letters you never sent. Do you still have any of them? Boya nodded. One. I brought it with me. May I see it? Caprio asked. Boya reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a folded, time-worn piece of paper. He handed it to Officer Romano, who carried it carefully to the bench. Caprio unfolded the paper, its creases deep, ink slightly faded with age, and began to read silently before speaking aloud. Dear Judge Caprio, you probably don't remember me. I was 15. You sent me to a program instead of detention. You told me I could change. Everyone else had already decided I couldn't. You were the only one who believed in a kid everyone else called the lost cause. I'm writing to tell you that you were right. I did change. I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know. Respectfully, Riken Boya. Caprio folded the letter, handing it back to Romano, who returned it to Boya. When did you write that? 2003, Boya said quietly. 22 years ago. Why didn't you send it? Caprio asked gently. Because I thought you wouldn't care. Caprio's voice softened. I would have cared. Belief is a sentence served in reverse. He opened the current case file, glancing down at the charges. Here's what I'm going to do. The failure to maintain insurance is a violation. The fine is $320. But you didn't come here to avoid a fine. You came to close a loop. Yes, sir, Boya replied. So here's my ruling, Caprio continued. The fine is waived. Nguyen began to speak, but Caprio raised his hand in exchange. You will complete 100 hours of community service as a mentor at the Providence Youth Center. You'll work with young people facing challenges like the ones you and your son have faced. You'll report monthly to the court about your hours and progress. He paused deliberately before adding, and you'll write a reflection, no more than 2 pages, on the topic of second chances in memory and justice. Submit it to this court when your service is complete, and we'll attach it to your record. Boya's voice trembled. Yes, Your Honor. Caprio leaned forward. Justice is not amnesia, Mr. Boya. It's continuity. You learned something in 1989. Now you're going to pass it on. I will, Boya said firmly. One more thing, Caprio added. No press. No interviews. You do the work quietly. If I see your name in a newspaper talking about second chances, you'll owe me the $320 plus another 100 hours. Understood, Boya said, with a faint smile. Caprio nodded. Debt's best paid by paying it forward. If you believe second chances still matter, subscribe to Caprio, the Chief Judge, so stories like this keep reaching people. He signed the order. Miss Bell, prepare the service agreement. Mr. Boya will report to the youth center within 2 weeks. Monthly compliance reports due to this court. Yes, Your Honor, Bell replied. Caprio looked back at Boya. Anything else? Boya shook his head. Just, thank you. Caprio smiled gently. Don't thank me. Thank the program that kept you in school. Thank Mr. Hughes. Thank Miss Perez. And thank your son for giving you a reason to come back. I will, Judge Caprio, Boya said softly. Caprio tapped his pen once before declaring, "Court is adjourned for this matter." Next case. The file read, Months 1 through 6, Youth Center Director's monthly reports followed. Month 1, Riken Boya reported February 3, assigned to the evening mentorship group for ages 14 to 17, attending 4 sessions totaling 16 hours. Participant feedback noted, he listens. He doesn't judge. Month 2, total hours 32. Boya led a workshop on accountability, sharing with the teens something a judge once told him, "You're better than your worst day." Month 3, total hours 50. Boya requested to bring his son to a session. Permission granted. Together, father and son co-led a heartfelt discussion on family responsibility. Month 4, total hours 68. Boya assisted with intake interviews for new program participants. Staff noted he was calm, effective, and built trust with remarkable ease. Month 5, total hours 84. Boya submitted his written reflection early. The director described it as powerful, honest, and humble. Month 6, total hours 100, completed July 28, 2025. The final session gathered 17 youth participants. Boya closed with the words, "You're not your worst moment. Neither was I." Ledger marked, hours completed. Reflection filed. Case closed. August 5, 2025. Return to court. Riken Boya stood once again before Judge Caprio, but this time, 3 teenagers from the youth program sat quietly behind him. "Mr. Boya," Caprio began, "I have your completion report, 100 hours, reflection submitted. The director's note says, you exceeded expectations." Boya replied humbly, "I just showed up, Your Honor." "That's more than most people do." Caprio held up the 2-page reflection. "I read this. You wrote about memory, about thinking I forgot you, and how that absence haunted you." Boya nodded, "Yes, sir." Caprio continued, "You also wrote that it didn't matter if I remembered your face. What mattered was that I remembered the principle. That's what you carried with you." "Yes, Your Honor," Boya said. Caprio set the papers down gently. "Mr. Boya, I'll be honest. I didn't remember your face when you walked in 10 months ago. I don't remember most faces from 1989. But I do remember why I made that decision, and that's what you carried with you." "Yes, Your Honor," Boya replied. Caprio smiled faintly. "You remembered the lesson better than I remembered your face." Recognition arrived 40 minutes late and 30 years deep. Caprio picked up the case file again. "Your obligation is complete. The fine is waived. The case is closed. But tell me, are you willing to keep volunteering at the youth center?" "I already signed up, Your Honor. 2 nights a week." "Good," Caprio said, nodding. "Because the work isn't finished." Caprio gestured toward the teens in the gallery. "Who are they?" "Kids from the program," Boya said. "They asked if they could come." "Why?" "They wanted to see what accountability looks like." Caprio looked at them warmly. "They're learning from the right person." One of the teens raised his hand nervously. "Yes?" Caprio asked, "Your Honor, can I say something?" "Go ahead." The teen stood. "Mr. Boya told us you gave him a second chance. He's giving us one, too. We just wanted you to know." Caprio's voice grew steady. "Thank you. What's your name?" "Marcus." "Marcus," he said gently, "you keep showing up. That's how second chances work." "Yes, sir." And as the courtroom fell silent, Caprio closed the file for the last time. "Mr. Boya, this case is officially closed. You're free to go." The words echoed softly in the courtroom. "Thank you, Your Honor," Boya replied, beginning to walk away, but then he paused, turning back with something heavy yet hopeful in his eyes. "Your Honor, yes, I kept the letter, the one I brought in that day. My son read it. He asked if he could write one, too, for his judge." Caprio smiled faintly. "Tell him to send it. Judges need to hear from the people they affect." "I will," Boya promised. Then he left with the 3 teenagers, their quiet voices trailing down the hall, carrying the sound of change. 18 months later, the Providence Youth Center renamed its mentorship program Second Chance Circle. Riken Boya was listed as one of its founding mentors. Enrollment doubled in the very first year. Judge Caprio, moved by the transformation, added a memo to the court's official training guide for new judges: "Never forget faces, but if you do, remember the principle. Justice is personal even when memory fails." That note was filed under Ethics and Accountability, and every new judge read it during their orientation. The program model soon spread to 3 other cities, each one carrying the same message: "You're better than your worst day." Boya never sought attention.
He gave no interviews, wrote no op-eds, appeared in no campaign ads.
He simply showed up every Tuesday and Thursday night, talking to kids, listening more than he spoke. His son completed the program in 2026, graduated high school, entered community college, and began volunteering beside his father. Memory is fallible, but mercy is not. 3 years later, during Judge Caprio's retirement interview, a reporter asked,
"Do you regret not remembering Rican Boya's face back in 2025?
Caprio sighed softly. "I regret it every day," he admitted, "but regret taught me something.
Justice isn't about perfect memory. It's about humility, principle, and remembering why we give second chances.
I forgot his face, but I never forgot why I believed in redemption."
The reporter pressed again, "Do you remember him now?"
Caprio smiled. "I remember the man who walked into my courtroom and told me I saved his life. I remember the letter he carried for 22 years. I remember the 3 kids who sat behind him to see what accountability looks like."
Is that enough? It has to be.
He might have forgotten a face, but that face never forgot him. Years later, a package arrived at the courthouse with no return address. Inside was a framed photograph, Rican Boya, his son, and 12 smiling teenagers standing before the youth center. Taped to the back was a handwritten note, "Your Honor, you asked if it helped.
It did.
It still does.
Here's proof. Rican Boya 2028.
The photograph was hung not in Caprio's private office, but in the shared judge's break room, where everyone could see it. Beneath the frame, a small plaque reads, "Memory fades.
Principle endures."
New judges often asked about the photo, and senior judges would tell the story of the man and the boy who reminded the court what justice truly meant. The tale spread, and so did the principle.
Rican Boya never returned to court. His son never appeared on a docket. The cycle broke not because it was erased, but because it was redirected. Judge Frank Caprio retired in 2029, leaving behind a final message to new judges that justice is not about being remembered. It's about remembering why we judge.
You'll forget faces.
You'll forget names. But never forget this: the person standing before you is always more than the worst thing they've ever done.
That morning, he left the courthouse quietly, but his story stayed behind, in a file, in a photo, in a legacy built on mercy. 36 years had passed between a juvenile sentence and a traffic ticket. 2 moments bound by one timeless truth and one man who never let justice lose its humanity. When Frank Caprio wrote those words back in 1989, "Detention is not damnation," he wasn't just correcting a boy.
He was shaping a city.
Those 4 words, "You're better than your worst day," became more than advice, law school lessons, courtroom echoes, and the unspoken creed of every new judge who entered Providence. Today, Rican Boya is 50. He still volunteers, still shows up, still reminds every young soul who mirrors his past, "You're better than your worst day." In his desk drawer lies the same old letter, yellowed, unscented, unforgettable, because justice, in its purest form, isn't about being remembered. It's about remembering why we judge, and that is the legacy of Judge Frank Caprio, a legacy where compassion became policy, mercy became tradition, and kindness became the fairest verdict of all.